Cool. Right. Okay. I'm just going to kind of get stuck in then. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I am Bryony. I'm the Partnerships Manager here at Airship and Toggle. We specialise in hospitality, email, SMS marketing, and commerce or gifting. You can think of me as a little bit of like a compare today for HGEM. So I'll just be kicking things off. Just to kind of give a little bit of context to why we're here and the structure of the call, we have kind of two partner webinar concepts here at Airship and Toggle. The first being Partner Pilates, which is very much centered around integrations, how they work, what you can do with them, etc. And secondly, flight plans, which is what you have joined today. A flight plan is where we invite a partner of ours to completely take the floor and introduce us to something that they specialize in that may or may not be directly associated to our world. We've had Fable talk about hotel bookings, Two Forks about copywriting and automations, Bums on Seats about driving Christmas bookings, and today we have the lovely ladies of HGEM talking about everything mystery guests and audits. Something that I would like to learn a little bit more about, so I'm excited to learn about it alongside all of you today. So with that being said, Kate, Susie, would you like to introduce yourselves, and I'll kind of you can take the floor.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate. I'm Head of Sales and Marketing at HGEM.
Hello, I'm Susie. I'm the Business Development Manager at HGEM.
Thank you so much for coming, guys. So as per the obvious, we're here to talk about mystery guest audits. It's a bit of a masterclass. We've got 40 minutes to go over pretty much everything there is to say. We're just looking at the agenda here. I'm not going to read it out because that would just be me saying mystery guest audits a bunch of times. But I will draw your attention to Q&A in the end as well. So we've got time set aside. So if you've got any questions, just write them down into the chat, or if you wanted to. It's quite interactive. I think there's not too many of us here today. So if you want to just raise your hand and ask, that's fine as well. So it's quite easy going here today. So first things first. So just a little about HGEM. Obviously, we don't want to make it too much about HGEM. It's mostly about mystery guest audits. But in case you've never heard of us before, we are all about hospitality guest experience management. That is what HGEM stands for. So we do pretty much what we say on the tin. And our mission is to empower hospitality businesses through giving them the tools you need to implement a cycle of continuous improvement in the industry. What it kind of comes down to is that we've got the solutions that will help you improve various aspects of your business. But ultimately, we know it is to help you guys to grow sales, because that's what ultimately hospitality businesses want to do. And we bring a wealth of experience from over 20 years of working exclusively within the sector. And the solutions that I mentioned earlier are mystery guest audits. So for us, then our solutions. So mystery guest audits are what we are talking about today, but we also do guest feedback, review management, product ratings or dish ratings. We've got a really good mix of the traditional digital solutions, but also the practical ones, which is the audits that we'll be talking about today. So more about mystery guest audits. So we've got a motto internally for the audits. It's what gets measured gets done, and that's in particular in relation to your team. So what we found with our clients is if their teams know that they're measured on something, it's far more likely that it will get done, and it will get done in a way that the management team expects it to. So the types of audits available, so the stuff that you can use mystery guest audits for, obviously you would know eat-in, restaurants, pubs, and that's your kind of standard use for mystery guest audits. But we also do food delivery and click and collect. You can also use mystery guest audits for accommodation and leisure, so hotels, bed and breakfasts, and leisure. We've got some cinemas on board, even go-karting. We also support events and catering. So just a few weeks ago, we supported Royal Ascot, which was really exciting. It can support calls and show rounds as well. A bit more about that in a minute. So what are the high-level benefits for mystery guest audits? You can be confident that brand expectations are met by employees, protect brand image by ensuring consistency across sites. You can use them to highlight opportunities and areas for improvement. And what can be measured? So it's brand standards, processes, team behaviors, consistency across sites, training efficacy, and upselling. So we've got some really good practical examples of how what kind of problems and solutions mystery guest audits can help solve, and some use cases and some case studies coming up as well. So these are just high level, but we're going to go into way more detail in a minute. But something that I wanted to highlight was the delivery audits, because that's something that you wouldn't necessarily think you can use mystery guest audits for, but in reality it's probably the only solution that gives you visibility of what happens to your food after it leaves the kitchen. So delivery audits can help assess and improve the reliability of your delivery channel. So it can help prevent common delivery problems, including product availability, delivery timings, packaging, product quality, and temperature. So the latter is actually one of the most important ones for customers. We've done a consumer research before, and there's literally nothing worse than your food arriving cold when it's meant to be warm. It also helps you protect your brand to get full visibility, including photographic evidence over how your brand is represented when in the hands of your delivery partners. And this is really important because I've got the stat here, and it's from another consumer survey that we did. 58% believe that if food arrives late, both restaurant and the delivery partner are to blame. Even if it's not the restaurant's fault at all. The customers are quite unforgiving, unfortunately, as they often are. You can improve what's within the team's control. So anything that happens in the kitchen, is the food cooked to spec, is the right packaging used, and you can monitor the performance of the third party as well. So that's really important. So what happens, as I mentioned, to your food after it leaves the kitchen? Does it arrive late? Does it arrive cold? Is the packaging mushed up? Maybe the service could be better. Maybe they're a bit rude, who knows? But you've then got the evidence you need if any kind of disputes arise to take it to that third party and provide evidence for those discussions to improve that third party service. And it can help increase sales. So you can fix issues that lead to any failed orders. You can improve the processes that lead to a better reputation, and it's all in order for you to be able to grow your delivery business. Another niche for mystery guest audits is the call and email audits, which are particularly useful around peak seasons, and here in particular, I mean Christmas, of course. So call and email audits help ensure team members take and follow up inquiries according to brand standards. And this one is really close to my heart, because when I was a sales coordinator in Slug and Lettuce, and I was responsible for all the Christmas parties, I can't tell you the number of times where I had booking details written on pieces of napkins thrown into the office, or the times where in Christmas, a party of 20 walks in and I have no idea that they're meant to be there, but then they show me the deposit receipt that they've booked with someone who has forgotten to tell me, which is fantastic. So if I had access to call and email audits, then I would have used it. So I think the benefits speak for themselves, but just to recap, So you can ensure your call and inquiry processes are followed by teams. You can be confident in the knowledge that potential bookings aren't slipping through the cracks, or minimize booking issues such as lost reservations and deposits. And you can also use these to train and incentivize teams with call recordings and email screenshots, which are included in the package. So you could have a team session or a meeting to discuss through a call recording, for example, what went well, what didn't go well, and perhaps at the end of the season, the person with the highest audit score, for example, could win some prize for doing so well. So you could do a bunch of stuff with these. So talking a little about the different data sources that we typically have, how they're different and how they also complement each other. So there's a little bit of a myth in the industry that you usually either use guest feedback or mystery guest audits, and one is better than the other for certain things. But what I believe, we believe in HGEM, is that they're actually really different. You can't really compare them, and they're good for very different particular things. Just to kind of walk you through my reasoning. So guest feedback is very subjective. It's what your customers think and feel. The key metric here is NPS, which is an indication of customer loyalty, which does correlate to growth in relation to competitors if you've got a high NPS score. Then we've got review management. So this is all about your online reputation, what your customers say about your brand, but also how you respond back. Do you respond back to all of your reviews? Do you do it in good time? And the key metric here is the Google rating, which is an indicator for future footfall. You could mention also other review sources, of course, like Facebook, TripAdvisor, or even the smaller ones, but in reality, Google is the most used and the most influential review platform, in particular for that future footfall. Because obviously when people look at, when they're in an area and they're looking for a place to go, they will search Google, you know, what are the best restaurants around, or what are the best venues around, and typically the one with the highest rating will get chosen. And now mystery guest audits. So mystery guest audits are all about that objective feedback. So does the experience of the customer match the expectation of the management team? So we've got all the service steps being followed. And the key metric here is the audit score, which indicates how well processes are followed by the team and highlights any training requirements. So you can see that they're all extremely different. And now you're going to laugh at me, but actually I need to put my charger on. So if you forgive me for just 1 second. This always happens though, doesn't it? So I know you'll forgive me. There we go. Right. Oh, charging. Excellent. Okay, so, oh, I didn't quite make my point here that I wanted to. So essentially we've got 3 very different data sources, and they've all got their particular goals and their particular objectives that they will help you achieve. So you can't really compare them. But if you were to use them all together, you would be able to get a 360-degree view of all your customer touch points, which would give you much more volume of actionable data all across different angles. So that's what we typically recommend, if at all possible, to kind of go all 3. But of course, if there are budget constrictions, which there often are, if you come to choose one or a few, just make sure that you're guided by the goals. So you start with goal, and then you see what kind of data source best matches that goal. But no one is better than the other. They're just all really different. And then talking about the goals, so what kind of objectives and goals would you use mystery guest audits for, and why? So we've covered the traditional teams in hospitality, and let's just see what are the different kind of problems or goals they might use mystery guest audits for. And so in the operations teams, they would want to maintain consistent brand standards. They would want to encourage team ownership and accountability. To demonstrate due diligence, for example, allergen processes or VAT. They want to improve spend per guest. They want the team to be more competitive. And finally, they want to understand what's working, what's not working, and prioritizing resources where necessary. So with the marketing team, what they would want to do is to increase brand visibility and reputation. So if processes aren't quite right, if review scores are suffering, for example, that sort of shows there's something not quite right in the business. So you can use mystery guest audits to suss out what's going wrong and to fix it, which would improve the reputation, which would lead to higher review scores, and ultimately to increase the brand visibility as well. They would also sometimes be in charge of monitoring and managing feedback. So this is often with the operations teams, but it does occasionally fall to the marketing team. So then they would also be able to use mystery guest audits to make sure that they've got enough feedback in the business. And monitoring marketing materials. So this one is a good one because there's no other solution really that tells marketers whether the A boards are out in a business, for example, whether the posters that are in them are in date, so they're not advertising Christmas in March, for example, that the chalkboards are all beautiful, up to date, not smudged. So just it's taking stock of all the POS that's in a venue or in venues. And you can't really get that kind of feedback through guest feedback or reviews. So it's really, really specific. And finally, insight teams. So they want to generate actionable insights for the business. They want to identify key drivers for success and also to gather evidence for decision making so they can use mystery guest audits for all of those goals. So you can see here that the traditional user for mystery guest audits is operations teams. However, marketing and insights do get a lot of beneficial data from audits as well. So if you are from a marketing or an insight team, and if it so happens that your ops teams actually do run mystery guest programs, see if you can get that data for yourself as well, because there could be some interesting findings for you that help you in your job. Or even better, if you try to get involved with the program and join operations team to kind of tweak the questionnaire so that you can have some questions in there for you. Obviously for the business as well, if mystery guest audits is something that you use cross department, you'll get much better value for that as well. So 5 reasons, here are my top 5 reasons why any business should consider mystery guest audits. So number 1, mystery guest audits are objective. So I'm really hammering the point home here of the difference between guest feedback reviews and mystery guest audits. So mystery guest, so the guest feedback and reviews are written from a subjective perspective as what customers liked and disliked, whereas mystery guest audits are factual. There's something you expect as something you expected to happen, take place or not. So let's say something happens on a Saturday night, you get feedback and it says, oh, the service was really slow. If that same incident was written from a mystery guest perspective, they would tell you instead that they would tell you how quickly the order was taken, how long did it take for the food to arrive, and whether plates were cleared in a certain amount of time. So you can see the difference between the richness in data, the specificity, and the sort of the actionable quality of that data. And it's certainly not to say that one is better than the other, but it's just to point out the distinction between the two. So point number 2, mystery guest audits are impartial. So we often find that how businesses get around the need for mystery guest audits is if they use some kind of internal audits, but we find that they often struggle to bring any tangible results because there often will be some kind of bias, whether it's personal, reputational, whether someone is worried that if they say something negative, will it come back to bite them. And so we find that internal audits can rarely be completely impartial, whereas mystery guests have no reason to be positively or negatively influenced and can offer an unbiased view. Number 3, so I've touched upon this a little already, but it gives you insight into things your customers won't tell you. So you can't really go and ask your customers if they were sold a second drink, if there was a check back that was done, or if the allergy process was followed correctly. But if there are things you want to know about the customer journey, but you can't really ask your customers directly, mystery guest audits can help plug that gap. And number 4, mystery guest audits as a team training network framework, not a network. So it's much easier for the team to perform well consistently if they know exactly what is expected of them. But therefore, the mystery guest audit questionnaire can and should always be used for training purposes. So we've got a really good example from a client of ours, Flatiron, and they've got a bunch of restaurants in London. There are steak restaurants, and they just recently opened a new site. I think it was in Cambridge, if I'm not mistaken. And for the first time, they used the mystery guest audit questionnaire in the training process, and they found that the audit scores for that site were the highest across the whole estate. So then they decided that any new site opening that they would always use the same framework to use the questionnaire as training to start off a new site. So that worked really well for them. And there is a bit of a myth that I want to put to bed, that there is a data lag after a mystery guest visit, that it takes like a week or something to get the report, and at that point, is it even actionable? So that's not the case, at least not with us. So our reports are released the next working day, so the next business day. So if something happens over the weekend where there's a bad visit or something, and it needs to be addressed ASAP, then by the Monday team briefing, which probably likely to have, you'll have that report in place ready to discuss through with your team. And finally, the 5th point, it keeps your staff on their toes. So psychologically, audits keep your staff on their best behavior, as they never know when they might be assessed. So this is another myth that I want to put away, that mystery guests are easy to spot. We have a lot of measures in place to ensure that happens way less likely. So the first point is that the questionnaires are designed to reflect natural experiences. So gone are the days where the mystery guest would ask a specific question that would give the game away immediately. So we work really closely together with our clients to make sure that doesn't happen, that doesn't slip through. And we fine-tune these to perfection. We put a lot of effort into the questionnaires themselves, and they are always bespoke. Mystery guests are also briefed before their assessment to match the requirements of the operator. So they are always aware of what's expected of them. And a really important point is that we don't pay our mystery guests. They do it for the pleasure of visiting brands they already love. So they would choose the visits they want to do, and this would be the brands that they would visit typically in their real life as well. So there's always a really good fit between the mystery guest and the environment and the brand. And there's also various rules that we can apply so that the visits take place on different days of the week or different times of the day. And there is also a thing that we call the no return rule, which means that if a mystery guest has visited a brand, then they can no longer book for another month or 3 months or 6 months, depending on the requirements of the brand, because all businesses are different. And that is it from me. Hope you've enjoyed this first part. I'm going to hand over to Susie now, and she's going to talk you through how exactly does the process work.
Cool, thank you, Kate. Hi everyone. So how does a mystery audit program with HGEM work? So imagine you wake up one day, perhaps you're an operations director, you're running a chain of restaurants, maybe an insights or an L&D manager for a hotel, let's say, or even head of marketing overseeing a bit of a company rebrand. Whatever it may be, you've probably been tasked with elevating your service offering across the business for your guests, and ultimately the key driver is loyalty and sales. So to do this, you'll obviously need to first find out what's working and what isn't. So what do customers love about your brand? Where are those zone of opportunities for enhancing the guest experience? So where do you start and how do you do that? Obviously, I'm biased and no points for guessing that my immediate answer would be to say to talk to HGEM. But really, the main thing I would say is to seek out some support from a third party. So it's really important, as Kate has already said, that this feedback remains completely impartial. And it isn't just somebody's opinion, but secondly, you have a tangible way to action those improvements, that feedback. So let's say you've reached out to us in this instance, woohoo, you've got in touch and we've scheduled a call. Usually we'd encourage you to invite anybody who's going to be involved in the programme. So that's really key. And obviously you'll know best who to invite based on different roles and things. But as we've mentioned before, we'd recommend probably inviting people from L&D or insights, operations, maybe customer experience teams, marketing teams. So anyone who usually has those customer touch points. And then there are a couple of ways that we can usually approach that initial conversation. So it might be, clients come to us with a really clear view of what they want insight into. They might have sort of important focus areas or recent challenges that are happening in the business that they want to address. And then with that, they might also have some really clear service steps. So they know exactly what the customer journey should look like and maybe what's already lacking from those interactions. And then there's also the flip side, which, by the way, is absolutely fine too. And we really love getting stuck into helping you shape that customer experience strategy. So you may have no idea where to start. Perhaps you've never run a mystery guest audit program before and you don't really know what to look for or what a customer journey should look like. You might have a vague idea, but you need some support. So we'll then sit down and explore what's most important to you to be getting right for your customers to keep them happy and coming back. And so to build on what Kate mentioned earlier, some reasons why you might want to look into mystery guests will probably include at least one of these. So inconsistency, as we've said, you've got multiple locations and you know that perhaps not all sites are performing to the right standard or giving the same guest experience. Perhaps the reason for this is that actually the service standards aren't very clear and your team don't know what's expected of them. Alternatively, you might not be aware of how the sites are performing, so you want that visibility. Maybe you've got ambitious growth plans, and we said obviously about the new site openings. So sometimes these can come with teething problems, as I'm sure you're probably aware, especially whilst you're training up the teams initially. So you need a way of benchmarking them against the wider estate just to get them up to speed quickly. And allergies obviously are a big one, so you want to make sure that the team are checking these without fail. That's obviously crucial. It might also be that your revenue is your downfall, so that's where you're missing the opportunities for upselling. You want to start incorporating that into your service steps and monitoring this to increase your bottom line. We've got an interesting case study which I'll share with you at the end about demonstrating the value that mystery guests can actually have on increasing revenue. Maybe you want to introduce a bonus scheme for your team, but you need this to obviously be impartial and based on quantifiable targets. Or perhaps your online reviews have seen an influx in poor ratings and you want to understand why. Again, as Kate touched on earlier, the business delivery side of things, so perhaps you have no idea what happens when your food leaves your restaurant, but you're getting bad reviews, so you want to check the accountability from your aggregators as well. And then finally, obviously, the main reason clients set up mystery guest audits is to help their teams to improve. So a lot of our clients say that they actually find it easier to deliver bad news or constructive criticism through an external source. So obviously, it makes it feel less personal, and that's where we can come in. So we've talked through what your focus areas are and obviously where you need support. We will then completely tailor a program to your needs. And we'll usually start by looking at things like frequency of the audits. So typically we'd recommend at least one audit per site per month, and that just helps to build up the data consistently. And then maybe for the sites with known issues, we would look to recommend that frequency, at least initially anyway, so you have those actionable insights as soon as possible. We'll then discuss pricing with you. We're very sort of transparent with our costs, and I think that's obviously key when entering into a new program. You need to know exactly how much it's going to cost you so you can allocate and agree that budget with no hidden surprises anywhere. So our pricing is done based on the length of the experience and the questionnaire. So you'll see here that recorded calls are obviously a little bit cheaper, and same with the quick service audits. But then restaurants and overnight stays are obviously going to take a little bit more time. The questionnaire will be a lot more detailed, so the price is slightly higher. You can also choose to add on additional experiences. So say for hotels, it might be spas, you know, the guests are paying more for that luxury, so you need to make sure that the teams are getting it spot on. Our pricing is also scalable though, so if you increase your estate size and the number of orders in future, we're always happy to review that pricing. So predominantly there's just two main costs you need to have in mind. So that cost per report, which covers all of the setup, report validation, visit fulfillment, that kind of thing. And then there's an agreed reimbursement. So this will usually cover the typical experience for one for delivery audits, I would say, or two people for a typical experience. So you set that completely and you have full sign off. So again, you know how much money is coming out and back into the business every month. And then our contracts, again, also hopefully very transparent. We actually currently absorb the upfront costs, so there's no setup fees at the time of recording this. Who knows when it will go out in future. But so we have a standard 12-month contract, and so you just pay the report cost and the reimbursements for 12 months. And then this is where we'll introduce you to our implementation team, who are sort of the experts in crafting your program and your questionnaire. They'll discuss timelines with you, and we can make sure we roll out a program in line with any important deadlines from your side. So typically mystery guests take about 2 to 3 weeks to set up the audits for, and creating the questionnaire as well. So we'll get the visits live on the system by then. And when it comes to then obviously defining your service steps and tailoring the questionnaires, we'll not only work through the key sort of touch points that are specific to your brand, but we'll also make sure that the essential part of what makes any guest experience great is also included. So this would then all come together in what we call your brand promise. So your customer journey then needs to reflect this brand promise, and we'll work with you to come up with something that's uniquely yours, but also aligned to your brand value and purpose. And we'll also offer recommendations for best practice. So this is based obviously on our expertise of 20 years working in this industry. We work with a variety of clients as well, so we can share what has worked really well for similar clients. And then, so getting into the nitty gritty of your program setup, we'll take care of visit scheduling, any criteria that you set or rules that you've stipulated to make sure that we encourage those natural visiting habits by the assessors. Obviously the key's in the name, mystery guest. We want the assessors to remain a mystery. And something that comes up, as we've sort of addressed, is a concern that our diners will be recognised. But as Kate has said, we have a series of measures in place to avoid this, the no return rule. And we also have a diner base of around 10,000 mystery guest assessors. So you're very unlikely to get the same assessor twice. Obviously, unless they love your venue so much, they decide to come back of their own accord, which is great. But if for any reason at all the assessor is recognised, we just discard the visit and we'll send somebody else free of charge. We also handle all of the assessor briefing as well. So based on your requirements, we'll then create a really detailed brief for the assessors to read ahead of the visit. So they're fully prepped with what to look out for. So any photos you need to take or questions that you want them to ask. And then we've got a handy HGEM Go app. So they have all the details to hand. And we can include any additional instructions that you think might be useful, you know, to kind of show them a typical guest behaviour when they come to your venue. So people often ask, I think, how we find our mystery guests. So I think this is on the next slide. So yeah, as I said, with the natural experience. So the truth is anybody can actually apply to be a mystery guest, but we make it really clear that they're not employed by us. So they have to pass a series of questions, like a bit of a quiz, to just ensure that their report quality is high enough for our standards, and they can provide objective feedback. So we're not looking to get any food critics, and that's not actually all that helpful. But they can then select their own visits based on venues they'd normally go to. So you're actually getting feedback that's reflective of your typical customers. So it works quite well. And then all of our reports are validated and then delivered the next working day. This will come into your inbox directly and also added to our insights platform, the hub, so you can keep track of the scores. We can also set delays if you'd rather, say, a head office review the report before it gets sent to your team. This is something that quite a lot of clients do. So they don't necessarily want the team getting wise to the fact that, say, they know they have one audit per month. So they take their foot off the gas when they see the report. So we can be really flexible with that. We also don't outsource anything. So all of the report validation is completed by our team. So I think this is on the next slide as well. Yeah, sorry, so just to say, so we actually grade our assessors as well on their reports, and it's an ongoing calculation, so it kind of motivates them to make sure that their reports are always consistently high quality. So this is an example of a typical report which is sent to your team. So these are fully branded to you. This is just an example, and we find that's actually really useful when it comes to things like internal communication. So for example, your teams know it's not us as a third party coming in and telling you what to do, but it gives them that accountability for their scores. But again, you'll have full sign off of the questionnaire, so we can include anything you want insight into, basically. And we can also sort of tag different questions. So again, with the bonus scheme, we can just make sure that everything lines up, and it's really easy to see how the team are doing. And as I mentioned, the hub, so this is the insights platform where all of the reports also pull into. And obviously the benefit of using the dashboard to view the reports is that you can not only see everything in one place, but you can also start to compare those scores, current audits and previous audits. And you can also see photos against each report as well. Clients always love seeing those photos. And there's a handy sort of case management tool. So rather than sort of sending lots of emails to follow up on anything that you want to action, you can now do all of this in the hub as well. And there's a lot more that we can go into, but I won't today just for the sake of time. So just a really high level snapshot of some of the data you can see. So here we've got the overall visit score on the left, and then below that sort of line will show you how that score has changed over time, with the ability to toggle between the different time frames, so months, weeks, or certain reporting periods. And then you can see how many audits to each site, And then a feature again that a lot of potentially sort of operations managers like to see, a leaderboard feature, just kind of highlighting your top and bottom performing sites. So that usually works quite well, I think, as a motivator. Nobody really likes to be at the bottom. You've then got these section scores from the questionnaire. So this will sort of instantly highlight where you're consistently underperforming as a team, or where the team are hitting full marks. It's always really nice to obviously encourage and praise those elements as well. But it will even show you at a more granular level the best and worst performing days as well across your sites, and then also time of day. So it might be, we can see here, for example, Wednesday's not the best day. And then you have the full commentary below in line with the different scores. So everything on the page acts as a filter. So again, if I wanted to click on Wednesday or food and drink, for example, all of the commentary will filter out, so you can just hone in on the relevant pieces of information there. So there's a lot that can be done, obviously, with the mystery guest program. I think clients definitely get the most out of it when they keep it fresh and they review it every now and then, just to check it still aligns with your priorities and that brand promise. So you'll have a review at the end of the first month with our implementation team. They'll just check that you're happy with the process, the schedule, the criteria, that kind of thing, and also that your teams know how to use the hub. That's obviously where the key bit of information is, so it's really key to be navigating the data. We'll then introduce you, once you're happy, to your client success manager. So they will be sort of firmly in your corner. They'll act as your strategic support throughout the program. They'll make recommendations if they notice anything, or additional focus areas maybe. Maybe also your team are scoring full marks and we need to just challenge them a little bit more. So they'll be that go-to person for you. And then we've also got a support team who are on hand throughout working hours, an online knowledge base as well. So you can go there whenever you need to look at FAQs, or maybe you want some useful tips just for making the most out of your program. And then it doesn't stop there. As I said, your CSM will just conduct those regular reviews and make sure that any tweaks and changes are made whenever you need. So finally, I just wanted to finish off by sharing a few case studies. So we're really proud of these, and obviously, hopefully it will help to highlight and demonstrate what you can get from these audits. So this first one is from our work with Farmer J. If anybody doesn't know them and is based in London, you should definitely check them out for some delicious and nutritious food. So when we started working with Farmer J, there were a few key areas that they were looking for support with. Firstly, they were quite honest and explained that historically upselling had been a really weak spot for their front of house teams. So they were subsequently looking to implement a bonus scheme to try and lift that, obviously, and turn that around. They also wanted deeper insight into the food quality itself and stock levels and availability, just to try and improve those areas. And the results were fantastic. So in the first 4 months of introducing the mystery guest audits, they'd seen a 3% increase in their average transaction value. So the team had really taken on board those recommendations for upselling. And then actually, as an added benefit, thanks to the bonus scheme, they were able to offer higher rates of pay. So that really helped with recruitment. So it's a win all round for them. And they're really pleased that obviously they can now offer a consistently high standard to their guests, but that the team are more engaged as well as a result. And then just some other great case studies. So we also help Coco de Mama, mainly assessing their delivery experiences. So just quickly, they sort of took on board all those improvements and bits of feedback that were highlighted within the reports. And they've increased their overall NPS score by 15 points. And this was just within 3 months. Brewdog, a really long-standing client of ours. So this is quite a nice one to kind of demonstrate the ripple effect of mystery guest audits and how they can have a deeper impact on the wider business. So 3 months into them bonusing the teams on the mystery audits, they then noticed a 0.2 uplift in their Google reviews. So clearly customers were notably happier with the improved service, the teams were more engaged, that kind of thing. So that's a really, really nice one to see. And then slightly differently, but Pret is again one of our longest standing clients. We built their whole bonus scheme with them, and we conduct weekly audits to 500 locations, I think it is now, internationally. But this is going back a few years. When we first sort of started working with them, we started to assess their deliveries, and we actually found that 8% of revenue was being lost just from failed orders and deliveries. Thankfully, this is no longer the case, but it also kind of goes to show just where there might be those missed opportunities in places that you perhaps hadn't thought to check in on. So thank you so much. Hopefully that has been a useful masterclass to everyone. We've gone through quite a lot there, but hopefully that's just helped to give you a bit more insight into what mystery guest audits are and how they can directly enhance not just the guest experience, but also your business. And perhaps debunk some myths along the way. And I think we have maybe a little bit of time for questions. Is that right, Bryony?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section or unmute yourself, ask the questions here. I actually do have a question though, if that's okay to kind of kick things off. So obviously with kind of operators or hospitality businesses, like a lot can change in the course of a year. How flexible kind of are you guys to make the steps kind of align with those kind of the changes or kind of their goals as they adapt?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that's the key, isn't it? Businesses that kind of constantly evolve and they check in on where they are and kind of ways to improve, I guess will do better than the ones that just try and stay stagnant. So we'd always kind of encourage our clients to continually review the program. As I said, we're really flexible. We will be checking in with you the whole way, so we don't just kind of set up a program and leave you to it. We really want to make sure that this does focus on the key areas of your business. It's kind of no use to otherwise. So we will always check in with you, and if you need to make any changes, that's no problem. One thing we would say is just to always keep a core set of questions the same, so just to be able to obviously report back on and help with that consistency. But things change, processes change, you might get new systems in place, and we just obviously want to make sure that we're making things easier, not more difficult for your teams. So hopefully that's answered your question, Bryony.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Unless we have any other questions.
Hi girls, I'm Vidya for Pizza Express UAE. I had a few questions since it's going to be our first quarter of implementing it. So in terms of logging in dashboard, I haven't received any information. So if someone can take me through that.
Yeah, of course. So what we'll do is we'll get in touch with you if that's okay. We'll set up a demo and talk you through all the things from logging into the dashboard, etc. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect.
And I was in touch with Lauren. She's the one who took me through the questionnaire and helped us with the revision. Would she be my point of contact, or each of the market has someone who would look after us? So if there's any questions that I would have, she could be.
So Lauren will first set you up. So basically she'll get you to a point where you're really comfortable with everything. And then once that's sort of achieved, then we would hand you over, or Lauren would hand you over to your client success manager, who will look after all your needs sort of going forward.
Great. And in case I need a revision in the mystery audit, because based on experience that we have had with a previous consultant, there are a few times that we have to go back, and then the managers are like, no, but he did write down the order, but the auditor says that he did not note it somewhere. So they send me CCTV footage and things like that. Yeah. So is there a way of revising? What is the process?
That is a really good question, actually. So we do have a what do we call it? The
process.
That's right. Yes. So if something goes wrong and it's not exactly the right information, then you can send that across and we'll rectify that for you.
Okay. And so, if the audit happens on a Monday, by when do we are doing a quarterly audit in the UAE, not a monthly one. So if it was done on a Monday of July, when do we expect it? How many days is the lead time?
Yep, it would be the next business day.
Oh, great. Okay. So we do have the training framework around the mystery audit. We practice that here as well, connected to our quarterly bonus scheme. So we are definitely on the same page there. But when it comes to the support, like you said, which would be a monthly basis, since we're doing it quarterly, would that also be a quarterly basis support?
The support will be whatever you need. So if you've got a question, you want to make some changes, just reach out to either Lauren, or once you've been handed over to your client success manager, they will be extremely responsive to you and your needs. So there's no such thing as too much support. So you don't have to worry about that.
Another question was, you said about the auditors being recognized. How do you figure that out? Is it us who tells you, or how do you know that he was recognized during the audit?
So I think that kind of comes back to, so as I said, you'll have regular reviews with your client success manager. So that is something you'll talk about. But generally speaking, it happens very quickly. So we would be notified, we would be told. We speak to the assessors directly as well. So it might also be that they know that they were recognized. And it's not like there's any hard feelings. It's just that we kind of discard that report. Like we said, there might be a level of bias. And obviously the whole point is to have a really objective piece of feedback. So we'll just discard the visit and we'll do another one if there's any kind of concern of a mystery guest being recognized. So it's not something that happens too often. Like I said, we've got so many mystery guest assessors, and that obviously kind of comes back to making sure that there's no forced unnatural behaviors when they go in. Sometimes people, sometimes clients still say, oh, in the questionnaire, can we get the assessor to go to the bar for a drink and then sit down? And our implementation team will sort of say, that's fine, we can do whatever you need, but is that a natural experience? Is that a natural journey? Because often that is something that's associated with mystery guests, is they do something completely rogue that nobody else does. And that's when it highlights who they are. So we'll always check that. And again, if things change, so maybe there's a new customer journey, just kind of letting us know. We'll just make sure that the mystery guest comes in and is a completely natural customer. So that also reduces any friction in that part.
I just wanted to know, because that was interesting for me to see. I had one more question. Just a minute. Questionnaire. So you said we could change the questionnaire, and you would change the client success manager once I get into the groove of doing things, and you would have a call for me for the login and the dashboard.
Yeah, we'll also offer we'll offer you hub training as well. So we'll make sure that you first got your logins, you've got that access. We've got a lot of sort of how-to videos as well, so you can always go back to that.
Could help me as well. Sure.
You can pause and you can play around and see the data. But yeah, and then we'll also offer detailed hub training too, so you'll be really, really well versed.
Perfect, yeah. My last question is, you said you have various auditors. So is it possible for me to audit for HGEM for other hospitality groups for the UAE, in the UAE?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What? So for other, so not Pizza Express, other.
No. Yes.
Yeah, of course. We so we do cover quite a lot of ground. Like I said, we've got a few different types of clients as well that we work with. So yeah, we'd be absolutely happy to support with another sort of branch as well.
Yeah, because I would like to be a part of it. For the current consultant, I also audit their restaurants. It gives me a perspective of how, even if it's something as small as seating a customer or small conversation starter, that I can, train my teams that, what, this company does this, so why don't we try it? So if you could initiate me through that process also, I would appreciate it.
Cool. Sounds good. Great to have you on board.
Those were my questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vijaya. Any more, or how are we doing for time?
Okay, I think we're good. I think we're good. Susie, Kate, thank you so much for going through that. It was really insightful, really interesting. And we'll have the recording sent out in the next few days. But thank you to all who joined.
Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much,
much.
guys.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.